Hi, I am Gabrielle, and this is The Invisible. This is the podcast about everything that quietly shapes our lives, the inherited patterns, the protective layers, and the invisible forces we can feel but rarely see. The ones that influence our health, relationship, our work, and the choices we make every day. My intention is to bring light to these hidden layers, so what has been unconscious can finally become conscious and therefore changeable. Before we begin, you'll find a free integration practice in the show notes. It's a beautiful combination of sound healing, tapping, and subconscious reprogramming, designed to help you integrate what we explore together today. I've also been receiving so many requests for more sound practices, and I promise there are more to come. So if you're standing at the edge of a big life transition, whether that's moving countries, changing careers, ending a relationship, starting one, or simply feeling that life is asking something new of you, you don't have to go through this alone. And you can work with me inside of Essential Care, my 6 months one-on-one container, or through the root session if you're looking for support around a very specific theme. You'll find everything in the show notes. So for now, let's begin. And today I want to talk about a very feminine subject, and it's the syndrome of the good girl that runs the show and healing the mother wound. So, what a subject, right? So those patterns might be still running the show. And I've been working a lot on myself, as you know, and I realized that in my mother lineage, in the feminine lineage, there is still a very big pattern of people pleasing, hyper-adaptation, shape-shifting, reading the room and adapting to the room as a coping mechanism. And as you know, I am trained in astrology and I read it in a very, very specific way. And when I look at the chart, I can see exactly where the patterns are blocked, where the psyche and the subconscious are creating those protective layers, those coping mechanisms, those survival mechanisms. Because the stronger you are, the harder it is to become vulnerable and to soften in those parts. And the stronger we are, the stronger our limitation and our protective layer become. And so therefore, it's the hardest for us to receive life, love, money, success, presence, whatever that you're actually calling for yourself and feels then really unsafe to receive. And to actually manifest your authentic self and your authentic life and your authentic happiness, in the sense that calling in what you want, your love story, your project, like taking your project to a brand new level where you can really fully shine and be where you belong. So how it shows up in the body is exhaustion, because it's always outpouring and performing and giving yourself to other, adapting and wanting to please, and that is very exhausting. So sometimes I have to stop and question myself. Is it really what I want to say? Is it really what I want to share? Is it really true to me? And I have to use my intuitive tools such as intuitive journaling or writing to really come back to myself, to come back to the truth of my body, because those are shut down. I went into my head, into this good girl coping mechanism, and I realized sometimes that I'm really, really far from myself. But now it's no longer running the show. It's not longer running my life, because I have the tool and I have developed the tools. And so I'm more and more aware. But of course, those patterns have very strong roots. So they come back in a very sneaky way. That's why we always need to kind of like do a little bit of work and to be aware of those. That's why a yogini practices every day. It's easier to fold back to our old patterns, to our old wounds, to be back to those spaces where we feel protected, where the inner child was like, okay, if I'm a good girl, I'm going to be loved, So maybe you've also worked a lot on yourself and you're just like, oh, I'm back there with the mother wound. Yeah. A new layer. And trust me, it's great, because when we go through that, then we can rebirth as this even stronger, more vulnerable, more powerful woman that we are. And I don't know how you feel, but I really feel that there is in the collective this huge reclamation of the feminine, of this soft feminine power, of let go of the mother wound, of being our own mother, of reparenting the self, of being our own caretaker, our own mother, bringing our love to those parts, of really coming to mother those parts that needs to be seen, that needs the light. Okay, so those patterns are very deeply imprinted in our system, and they are very deeply rooted in, sometimes in my story, in my mother lineage, and they are running the show. People, as I said, people pleasing, over adaptation, difficulty to rest, letting go, and surrendering. And these are not ours to hold anymore. This is not mine to hold. And I am at a moment where I'm like, this ends with me. I don't have to carry this. And another difficult part with the mother wound is this loyalty. It's part of our nervous system, of our psyche, of our subconscious, that thinks that we need to keep on holding this wound. That we need that if we leave that wound, if we let it go, we let go of our mothers. We let go of the woman of our lineage. And that's what the nervous system might think, or the subconscious might kind of like try to hold on. No, I'm not going to let this go. And it's interesting because this week I've done so many systemic constellation this week, I think 4. And on 3 of them, clients didn't want to let go of the patterns. They were like, no, I'm not ready. And we had to go through a lot of acceptation work and reparation work and honoring work to let it go, to let those patterns leave more space for our sovereign self, our choosing ourselves, to run the show, to be back at the wheel, to hold the reins. And I really feel that this month of July is a lot about that, for us to face those limitations, those limiting beliefs, those inherited patterns, with a lot of softness, kindness, love, with honoring them so we can let them go. What we do also in session is like, we also do cord cutting, but not cord cutting, like dissolving the cord, like, okay, honoring them and letting them go and replacing them with a lot of love, that we are safe to let go, safe to love ourselves, safe to live a life that we truly, truly want. That our system is safe to hold that and to create that. Maybe our inner child needed to create those coping mechanisms, those limitations, those layers of being the good girl, of being to be accepted, to be loved, and really, really kind of like crystallize those beliefs around that. So maybe the lineage needs our help, forgiveness, acceptance, honoring, and some beautiful rituals to release that. So, as I said recently, my walls are really thick, and my protective walls are really thick, and I know it's deeply imprinted in my mother lineage, and I'm working on it with all the tools that I use in my session, the somatic work, the subconscious work, the psyche, the systemic constellation. And as you know, I also work really deep with astrology when I read your charts, and I am rising Virgo. And when there is a strong Virgo archetype in the chart, most of the time there is this good girl archetype, good girl syndrome, because Virgo wants to be of service, wants to be perfect. And those are the shadows of Virgo, of self-abandoning totally. And this, for a rising, I don't know where it's placed for you, but for me, for a rising, I know that the rising is protecting the inner child. So I had to do a lot, and I still have to do some inner child work to really take this, to really bring her, like for her to take the space, the creativity that she wants, and to help her to release all this suppressed anger and frustration that she has, to let go of the syndrome of the good girl, to be loved and accepted. And personal sharing, I also have my son in Aquarius. So my son in Aquarius is very rebellious. So I have this strong pull, this strong opposition in my chart of being the good girl and over adapting. But in the meantime, I want to create things that nobody does, and I have also a very strong Scorpio archetype with many planets there. And so, it's kind of like an inner conflict between this good girl who wants to do everything perfectly, the rebellious part of myself who wants to change everything all the time. And so right now, because I dive very often deep into my chart, I know how to bring all those parts together and to bring the alchemy of it and the uniqueness of it. And this is what I'm sharing with you. My Scorpio loves to go deep into this transgenerational, unseen, invisible, dark cave, wild feminine thing, and my Aquarius is like, oh, channeling new ideas, and this Virgo is like, oh yeah, let's be pure and of service. And suddenly all my work comes together and it feels so right, so good, and I feel seen, and my inner child feels seen, and I can play around now with it. And with the constellation, I can't even tell you. It's like a game for me now. So what I've learned through my healing journeys, it's not my fault. I don't have to carry this shame, guilt, or like heaviness anymore. It's imprinted in my lineage, and I am safe to let this go. It's imprinted in my coping mechanism, and it's safe for let them go and for me to transform them. And I don't have to carry this alone. It's entangled, and we can do that in systemic constellation, transgenerational work, somatic work, coming back to the body, coming back to loving this body, coming back to loving all those parts. There are no judgment, shame, or guilt here to have around this. Only consciousness and acceptance. And for the mother wound, I think when we do this very deep feminine work, it's important to go to the mother wound it's the feminine wound of really profoundly caring, loving ourselves, and becoming this loving caretaker of ourselves. And I think this new moon that is happening today, tomorrow in Cancer is really asking us, and where it is right now with the transit, is really asking us to do this work of shedding layers, of letting go of the past, of letting go of those old loyalties, of these old bonds and old contract that we have with this mother lineage and this mother wand. And I think it's loving to give back the responsibility that is not ours to hold, so we have more energy, more radiance, more power for the project that we choose, that we want to birth as mothers, as we are, for our heart, soul, body. So yeah, I would be very interested if you want to share in the comments where you are with those topics. I think it's also something that is very deep, because our mothers or mother wounds are also mirroring a lot, and it can be extremely triggering. So let me know where you are at. And yeah, I've sat with, and I still sit with, many, many women going through these wounds. And it's a very tender process to meet our protective layers with love, gently unraveling the loyalties that no longer serves our purposes. Slowly and gently choosing ourselves, maybe for the first time in our lineage. And let's honor that, maybe because the woman before us were not allowed to do it. So it's an allowance, it's a permission. And we can do that with a lot of love, with a lot of care. It's exactly the work I do in Essential Care, in the root session. Reach out, ask me your questions. Let me know where you're at in the comments with those topics that are very, 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 very sensitive. And we go with very beautiful tools to those spaces and honoring the gentle of unfolding. So if this episode touched something deep inside of you, you are not alone going through that. You don't have to carry these patterns all by yourself anymore. You'll find the free integration practice in the show notes. It's created to support you to go through this inner deep movement. Thank you so much for listening to The Invisible. Until next week, take really good care of yourself, of that tender inner girl that wants to be held, that wants to shine, that wants to be seen, that wants maybe to express a darkness, a rage, a anger, sacred frustration, draw with her, journal with her, keep on choosing her, keep on telling her that she's safe to be with you, that you are with her constantly. Keep on choosing yourself, little by little, every day. Practice that, and so you can really, really create the life that can truly hold the real you. Thank you again for listening.